everyone. So just we are going to be present our remaining slide as from previous presentation. And sorry, we had some network and connectivity issue last time. Hope this will go good now. And I think everybody able to hear my voice.
I think so. Everyone can hear Naem voice. Yeah, just speak a little bit louder, Naem. Sometimes you fade out, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I'm just sharing my presentation. Right. This is a first slide. That's what we for today's presentation. I think everybody is familiar with this graph. This is from our IMS software, and we also known as a color building and die stuff building graph. So it's a basic behavior of any die stuff. So if you will see the left hand side, this is a horizontal vertical line. This is a color value scale, and if you see the bottom line, that is a concentration scale. So it's a simple, whenever we are increasing the concentration, then simultaneously K by S value or color value is getting increased. So it is a basic behavior for any die stuff. And if we see the top of side this graph, there is a slightly that line is getting down, or maybe die stuff dying adjacent capabilities going for decline side, and whatever we are adding, it will not give you that more depth or more color in die stuff, and it is going waste, or maybe we can say that is totally we are draining in solution or going to drain that die stuff. This is a simple understanding, but this is very important graph for any software for prediction and correction. So we need to be careful while going for while building this graph with present measurement and dying. So in this, if we have issues, if there is a simple, when we are preparing the primaries and measuring and shaving and going through this graph, then simply we need to be checked. This graph should be at least 45 degree from its baseline, like concentration line, horizontal line. And if it is getting flat afterwards, after like a certain concentration, that's fine. It will tell okay, that after this concentration, we should not use this graph. So from bottom line, almost 45 degree, and then we should prepare. But sometime we'll see that this is not almost 45 and not smooth enough, and we have some points up and downs. So what we have to do in this situation? Simple, we can enable or disable, or we can use the alternative dyeing if we have in database. Then we have to be understand what is caused not to be make it smooth. So this while enabling and disabling, we can make it as smooth or almost 45. If it is not, we have to be checked either in measurement or in dyeing, because this is a basic behavior of any die stuff. Which one is defined as a classified as a die stuff, then it should be come in this way. So majorly we'll find if there is issue in this graph, there might be issue due to measurement error, time error. Okay. So now we are moving for our next slide. Yeah. This is a little more interesting, and here we are same graph we have from our IMS software. What we see as a green line in bottom of this graph, and upper side we have one blue line. So it's just a modified line. We just added to be explain how textile dyeing is taking place. So first we have to be understand whenever we are doing any textile dyeing, there is a three kind of a stage for any dye stuff or any kind of maybe it is exhaust or maybe continuous or maybe reactive, any class of dye textile dyeing. So we have to be understand how this behave when we have initial concentration of textile dyes, then it is behaving very high with high exhaustion. For example, till 1% is giving you almost 80, 90 to 80% exhaustion. But after 2, or 4%, it is giving you constant 60 to 70 or 75% stable exhaustion. And after 4 to 5%, it is giving you that exhaustion almost 30 to 20%. So that's why we classified this textile dyeing in three phases. One is child age, one is stable dyeing age, one is old age. I think you may be seeing this one. Old age. So same thing is going, same kind of behavior or same kind of thing we can able to be understand with our IMS software. So whenever we are preparing our dye stuff or measuring the dye stuff in IMS, and then we'll go for a dye building graph, then we'll right click, we will see that there is a normalized CSV graph is there. If we will go there, then it will show us this graph directly. So in this case, if we find the graph as child age, that is fine. If we find the graph with child age and stable dyeing, that is also fine. If we find the graph with the stable age and old age, that is also fine. But it should not be up and down and zigzag. That we are going to be see in next slide how it should not be this graph. So it based on the percentage, on which percentage we are working, and it will get built, and we can accumulate or we can evaluate that, yeah, it is fine. So this is very important for any correction or for any correction and addition. So if we don't have a good graph, this graph or a smooth graph, then maybe we have an issue for our recipe correction and addition and topping. So there is a one thing, if we have any up and downs, the simple way we can enable and disable the points, or if we have alternate dyeing, that also we can use, because as we recommend if we are going for any dye base or database preparation, we should have alternate dyeing for at least 3 levels. So based on that we can decide which one is suit, and that we can select, and it will be get smooth. And sometimes if we are going to be disable higher concentration or maybe very low concentration, that also improve this graph. Now question is, which thing caused this graph uncertain or maybe not smooth enough? There are several things. It may be because of multiple substrate, it may be uncertain dyeing process, it may be change in dyeing instrument or dyeing instrument mechanism. So whenever we are preparing the database, we should have at least common and proper right substrate for complete database preparation, and we should not change in between, and we should not be change the process. Maybe if we have a, for example, we have a 15 samples for any primary, so 5 or 10 we have prepared in class in bath, and remaining we have prepared in infrared machine. That also cause this kind of issues. So better we recommend we should minimize the variables, and then if we are going to minimize the variables, then this is graph is going to be built properly and going to be helping for better results. So next slides. We see here, I just added 4 graph from our software. So this is a normalized CSV graph. So sometime if we prepare and we save that the primaries, we will find this kind of graphs. So if this kind of graph we should not accept. So we should make a smooth, like relaxing chair kind of. So lower concentration from higher side, and maximum concentration lower side, and in between stable, as we have seen in previous presentation. So if we have issue, then we have to be check whether measurement or dyeing thing. If not, we have to check, okay, complete database primary is prepared with same substrate, or maybe we had a same dye process. Oh, yeah. Now this is the next slide, and This is a simple what color evaluation setting we have in software. So we can see there is a minimum level of storage. So while recommending or preparing any primaries, we recommend that at least we should have three options, alternate dyeing options. So it's defined here if we can go for more than three as well. So it's depend. Okay, okay. At least it is recommended to be go with three. If you want, if any user or any customer or anyone want to be more than three, then that also we can increase. So this minimum level is explain that alternative dyeing options and percentage strength error limit. So whenever we for this is a software related things. So whenever we are doing any measurement in IMS software, so there is a actual measurement and then there is a virtual measurement for inspect software. So it will correlate both the samples, virtual sample and actual measured sample. So in between, if it is more than 30%, it is a limit for we have defined 30%. If it is more than 30, it will that software or will not accept that sample. If it is less than 30, it will accept. But it is depend on the our dye stuff nature, which dye stuff we are working, and there is a virtually it is okay to be identify software. Based on that, we can increase and decrease this limit. So normally, as a SOP, we are using 30%, and we can recommend 30%. D limit 0.5, it is for sample repeatability. For example, if you have a three level as we have seen above, three level. So if we are measuring first level and then second level, if in between, if it is more than zero point 0.5 deviation, then database will not accept that sample. If it is less than 0.5 difference between first level and second level, then database will accept that level. So it is a limit to be identified repeatability between first to second level, and that also we can increase and decrease, but it is recommended we should keep at least 0.5 minimum, maximum 0.5. Now, strength method. When we are preparing the database, we'll see there are there is setting for a strength method as well. There are two settings. One is summed color value and other one is single wavelength color value. So normally it is recommended when we have a database in dyeing reflectance. If we prepare the database in reflectance mode, we should go for some color value method. If we prepare the database in transmission method, then we should go for a single wavelength color value method. So D type, this is a 2000, is based on our final judgment. If we are working with CI lab, then we should use CI lab. If we are working with C2000, then we should use C2000. In textile, mostly we are using CMC. So if we will, that also we can use. If this is a drop down option, so we can use as per our requirement. But if we have a more visual decision, then it is recommended to be use C2000. Now, color building, we have two options. In software, we have two options, model or point to point. So in simply model, it is a correlated database with the software side, and point to point, it is like actual measurements. So it's depend now, we have very good algorithm in software. So it is recommended if in textile database or any database, we should go with model. But in certain or extreme condition only, if we have some of the types of behavior which is software can't understand, and if we have a kind of issues, then we can go to point. So in fiber type, class, and process, I think we all know that if which class we are making, for which fiber we are making the dyes stuff we have, like cotton, polyester, nylon, anything we can sell that wool or silk. Dye class may be reactive, disperse, wet, naphthol, and other basic dyes, acid dyes, metal complex dyes, whatever we are doing, those we can select here. And dye process is exhaust or continuous. And relative pickup, is if it is a exhaust dyeing, we should keep 100. If it is a continuous, then we can change the based on our dye house pickup limits. So if until unless we don't have a recommendation, we should not change from 100. Color value of substrate more than color value of primaries. Yes, this is a very important. We are clearly come across with this kind of situation, but still when we are working with polyester fiber or polyester yarn, then we have issues. So this is the option will allow you to get the warning or error if substrate K by S value is more than dyed sample. So if we want to be, or this it should be, if we want to be check in substrate K by S value is more than uh, that sample, that also you can see in our graph K by S or reflectance graph. And if software don't want to be accept that, we can click here, then software will not accept and it will not affect our formulation. So this is a kind of basic settings we have for color evaluation, and or further like substrate and substrate factor, production factor. These kind of settings we will have in formulation that we'll see in next session. Okay, this is the final points for while preparing for best. It is a best practice in industry to be minimize the variables in textile. So normally, first whenever we are preparing any primaries or database, we should select the right of good fabric or maybe common fabric, common quality. So in this case, if we know the textile have a fiber, yarn, fabric. In fabric also we have woven, non-woven, knitted. So if we have this kind of formation, then better we should prepare the separate database for fiber, separate database for yarn, and separate database for fabric. Either it is a woven, non-woven, or knitted. But in textile also, in fabric also, we have several classifications like cotton. Cotton also have voile, cambric, poplin. So in this, we can choose the common quality, which is having the common and moderate or mild exhaustion and dyeing property, and we can prepare the database and we can use the simultaneously to it's a similar quality. So same thing is possible in yarn and fiber and other knitting and other fabric as well. So while choosing the fabric, we should also understand that sample or fabric should able to be able to be demonstrate proper color. Yeah, whatever we are seeing, it should be that same fabric also be able to be exhibit the same kind of color. So that is also, if we have an option, then we should choose in between. And that sample material, whatever we are using, it should be very easy for measurement for spectrophotometer. So like sometimes we choose the substrate which is not able, very easy to be measured. So in that case, we have some fixer or maybe some kind of sample package for sample preparation that also we can use on spectrophotometer. Second, dyes and chemical selection. Yeah. So in textile, we are working in two level. One is lab, one is products, and basically we are preparing the database or preparing the primaries in a lab level, and then that same database and using for production. So in this case, we have to be very clear whatever we are doing for production, we should use in lab, and whatever dye stuff and chemicals we are using in production, we should keep for lab. So whenever it will help to be make you to be lab to production correlation. It will make you to be help to be create the good correlation between lab to production, and then they will use. Sometime what will happen ki customer say, okay, we are using this dye stuff for uh, dye stuff for only for lab and this dye stuff only for production. And finally they will say, okay, the lab to production correct correlation is not getting is not good, and we are not getting good recipe prediction and correlation. So in this case, it is recommended whatever we are doing in production, it should be whatever dye stuff and chemicals we are using, it should be same, it should use be in lab and while preparing the primaries as well. Dyeing process and equipments. Dyeing process, it's in a dye process. First we will take dye process. Dye process include like temperature, liquor ratio, and gradation. So it is also effect. So whenever for while we are preparing the database for lab, and same database if I want to be used for production, it is very recommended to be use the same dye process or equipment in lab as well. So in the, for example, if you are using the liquor ratio 1:10 in products, then same we should use in lab, and we should use the equipment which is going to be instrument which is can replicate the dyeing mechanism as we are doing in production. And it is also be recommended in equipment. For example, there are several kind of lab equipment for glycerin dye bath, IR, glass leads, and then Sando labs. So based on the mechanism which is going to be replicate or going to be good correlation with production, based on that we should choose the dyeing equipment in lab or while preparing in database. Yeah. Fourth option is weighing technique. So weighing is also is important because whenever we are in while preparing the database, we are working with very small quantity, very small size of samples or very small size of package of dyeing. So in this, if it is a small deviation, it will maybe affect bigger in production and bulk dyeing. So in that, weighing is also is very critical part. In this, we recommend we go with the dispensing system with multiple precision points. So normally, if we'll see when we are doing the manual pipetting, there may be a chance to be get deviation, and then a small deviation may be affect big color deviation or the tonal deviation for sample, and then it may be not, it will affect your primaries and then final result as well. So weighing technique is really play the crucial part in this also. So we recommended we should use that very good weighing scale for dyes or chemical weighing, and for sample preparation for exhaust process we are doing, and we should check okay that sample will also be accurate and with proper precision. Sometimes we are using, oh, this is 4 gram sample, but we should check it is a 4 point some microgram also is there. So that calculation we need to be we need to be checked. And if we are preparing the database with proper weighing, then it will give you the good primary assessment. Now, okay, fifth point, substrate blind line. Now, this is a part of our primaries, and whenever we are preparing the primaries, so we'll use the first sample as a substrate, and sometimes substrate we are using as a RFD or as a gray fabric. So this is highly recommended. We should not use that primary is substrate RFD sample or gray fabric sample. We should use the blank dyeing substrate. So in that blank dyeing is nothing but like we will treat the fabric or maybe that sample or that material complete process. We'll do the scoring, we'll do the dyeing, we'll add the auxiliaries and chemicals, we'll do the stopping and everything. But in this complete process, we will not include the dyeing. That's we call the substrate blank dyeing. So that sample only we should use for primaries. And concentration level, okay, which concentration level we should use and how much or till. So normally it is recommended if we are working, we should just check which this particular dye stuff A, okay, how much concentration we are using from minimum to maximum, and slightly if it is recommended 10% plus, we should do 10% plus from bottom, 10% plus for higher concentration. And for example, if we are using that practically we are using that dye stuff 0.1 to 3%. So what we'll do, we'll prepare the database 0.05 to 3.5 percentage. This kind of practice, but still if you have still issues, then we can ask our dye stuff supplier also. They will also recommend, okay, this is a kind of dye stuff behavior, then you will prepare the level in this concentration breakup. Okay. Now 6 points recommended that all concentration level are processed in single dyeing cycle. Yeah. So whenever we are preparing the dyes primaries, so what we do, for example, we're preparing the primary samples, 15 primary samples, 15 primary samples, and 5 or 10 in one cycle and 5 or 10 second cycle. To minimize the variable, it is recommended that all complete 15 sample, if possible, we should prepare in single cycle itself. So there will not be any variables on any issue. So it will give you the good graph, either it is a color building graph or it is a normalized CSV graph or it is a prediction performance of that software. There will not be big issues to be over this kind of error on those graph as well as in predicted performance error. So it is recommended to prepare all 15 or maybe complete number of samples in single cycles in lab line. Yeah, multiple cycle dyeing for same color of concentration. Yeah. So here it's my mistake, I think. Sorry, is it? Five. Multiple cycle for same color concentration. So when we are preparing the alternate samples for like one or two, three level, three alternate sample, then whenever we are preparing, and those samples should not have deviation more than 0.5 delta, CMC delta. So if you have seen in iMatch, we have alternate sample one or two or three. So in between, it should not be 0.5, and it also tell our dyeing consistency, how much good dyeing consistency we have in lab, and it repeatability. So it is recommended when we are having the alternate samples, should that seems that delta E should not be increased 0.5. So yeah, point number 8. Well, whenever we are preparing the primary, we should be doing some pre-check and diagnostic. Like always do instrument check, calibration setup, and measurement method. Instrument check, okay, we should assure about the instrument performance as well as diagnostic, or we should our instrument is yearly calibrated and we well diagnose and with good condition. We should assure that the instrument in good condition. Calibration setup, normally calibration setup is depend on which kind of database we are preparing and for which quality or which fabric. So that calibration setup also we should check. Or normally it is recommended if we are preparing the database, we should go with the maybe a higher aperture, and if it is specular include in UV and UV condition is depend on the database we are preparing for non-UV or UV fluorescent or non-fluorescent colors. So it is in textile is recommended 100% is fine, but if you are preparing the database for fluorescent colors, then it is recommended to be used that UV calibrated options. Measurement method. Measurement method is normally when we are preparing the primaries or preparing the primaries and measuring those things. So what we do is just giving the single measurement. So in this, it is recommended we should use that multiple measurement and average method. Or in this, we have to be checked that single sample, if you are measuring 4 times, there should not be deviation more than 0.2 delta E. Or there should not be difference between 0.2. If it is more than 2, technically we call it as uneven dyeing sample, and then it may be cause for not good result in formulation and correction. So once we measure everything, so that we can review the complete dye set performance in IMS software while checking that color space graph, color rendering graph, spectral graph, with percentage and K by S, and time building graph with normalized CSV, what we have seen in last two previous slides. And everything is fine, then we can store and we can go. A simple way we can say, if we have a good database, we have a good result. If we have poor database, we have going to be poor results. It's kind of a garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. So in textile, we have to be, there are a lot of variables. So basically we have to minimize the variables, and then we are sure okay, then we are going to have good result, a good database, then it will give you us good result in IMATS or in IMATS prediction and correction. Okay, thank you everyone, and this is it from my side. If any question, any doubts.
And yes, Naem, there is a question on the chat. The first question was, you have to go back to point number 5 about blank dyeing. Can you further explain on that?
Yes. Blank dyeing, for example, we are preparing the primaries for 0.1, 0.2, 0.3%, and along with that, we should prepare that blank dyeing. So blank dyeing means we are using the same substrate. We are treating with complete process like scoring, dyeing. We are adding the chemicals and auxiliaries, and we are completing. We are doing complete dyeing. But in this, for substrate blank dyeing, we are not adding any color or any dye stuff. So that sample is going to be look like RFD only, but it is fully treated as a dyed sample. So that's why we call it blank. I mean, there is no color at all.
But it can be pre-treated.
Yes,
Right.
fully treated with fully dyeing process treated sample, but there is no color.
Okay. All right. Okay. Another question here. What about the fibers like wool where we have a lot of hairness? The difference in reading may exceed 0.2. I think this is on your recommended average measurement.
Yes. So in this, I think for fiber, it's a kind of this wool fiber. Yeah, there is a maybe issue. For this, we have some kind of an extra or package. If we are using those kind of package for fiber measurement, then there will not be issue. Because if we are preparing the same wool fiber for measurement from manually, then sure it will not be possible to be get the 0.2 delta E. But if we are using that glass fiber package we have, then surely it will give you the 0.2, less than 0.2 even. Hope
Any question? Follow-up question, please. You can open your mic. All right. Okay. Go ahead, Naem. Are you explaining further?
yeah, I think there are a lot of questions. I think we need to read one by one.
Okay, there is another question here. In the weighing technique, okay, what digit do you recommend? 0.001, 0.01, 0.001, 0.00001. So
If it is a
what is
lab,
your recommended decimal points for the weighing scale?
if it is a lab database, then we will go for 3 to 4 precision per gram. Means 0.001 or 0.001 or more than that.
Okay.
0.012 or
Normally
yes,
for the lab, it should be have a what we call 0.001, 0.0, the bigger, I mean, the more decimal places, the better in the lab.
right.
Because when in the production, you have a kilogram. In the lab, you weigh by gram. So in order to convert from gram to kilogram, because 1,000 gram, 1,000 gram is equals to 1 kilogram. So if your decimal places is only 0.01, so you cannot you cannot transfer easily the 1,000 gram to 1 kilogram. So it's better to have more decimal places in the lab. Okay. So there's another question here. Naem, secondly, sometimes even though we have a Ks slope at 45 degree, but we face issue in the recipe.
Yeah, so in this, if it is a prediction, then we have to be checked that if it is a self color or maybe tri combination. If it is a tri combination, then we have to be checked that compatibility with each other with another dye stuff, and and also we have to be checked that normalized CSV graph. So surely it will not be have issue, because if we have a good compatibility in tri combination, and if we have a good 45-degree angle graph, but yeah, it's again depend on the tri combination compatibility only majorly.
Okay. Maybe Naem, you have to show the graph again because we have some requests on this to explain your point. It would help if you show the set calibration performance, and also
Yeah, it would be good to you if
yeah,
yes, yes.
what do you recommend for measuring Terry towel? So I think you can explain better the calibration performance with relative to the question about the 45-degree KS slope.
Yeah, it's in 45. It's we have to be see the database. If sometimes it is it's maybe case to case. If it is I think it is that question is from Vishal, and Vishal, can you tell me that it is because of we have issue in correction or maybe in prediction, or it is a self color or maybe tri combination?
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's
Hello.
directly it's not related to 45-degree angle. Yeah, yeah, Vishal, come on.
Morning, sir. So basically, sometimes what happens, the 45-degree graph, the graph is at 45 degrees, and I have
Yes,
sufficient number of, we have sufficient number of points on a graph with an accuracy. But what
yes.
happens, in certain cases, what happens, we are still unable to get recipes, either in the lower concentrations, scale of crystal sets of
Mhm.
colors, shades, or sometimes, in dark colors also we face such kind of problems, particularly if we talk about certain grays and,
In
some kind
prediction
of
or correction?
both,
In prediction or correction?
some first prediction as well as in correction, both.
Yeah, then I think we have to be check other parameter as well as like time parameter, what machine we have a good repeatability or not in time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, right, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
So what about calibration performance set? Can you help them show again? I think they missed that again. Can you repeat the M? What is a good?
Which one?
There is a question. It would help if you show set calibration performance.
Calibration. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more
Maybe.
like how to look at
Uh,
the curve. Yeah,
yeah. Maybe I will share that one slide. Maybe that kind of help this way. Yeah. I hope
you showing PowerPoint or you're showing color image?
I'm showing one is Word file which having at least three products, and then with the
We are looking
normalized
at
and
we are looking at the color value KS versus concentration. Are you trying to share another one? Another, maybe you have to stop sharing this so you can share another.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not up, your screen is not changing. There is a gray background.
Okay. Now. Yeah. Hope we can see this Word file. And there are three products. If we'll see, and practically this is created in iMatch, and practically also we have checked the performance and try combination compatibility. It was good. Whatever we are predicting from software, we are getting very good result in first shot. So this is a graph. We'll see yellow CAC and red CAC and blue CAC. So if we'll check that color value and concentration graph and normalized graph, all are good condition and similar to each one. So in technical also means in instrumental performance also they are compatible to each others. I think everybody can see this one, right?
Yeah, they can see, but maybe Naem, it would be better if you can show them in IMAX so at least they know, remind them where to see that or how to set up the software.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine.
So while we are waiting for Naem to move on the other to the program, there was a question with regards to the screen printing. I think I'm not a textile person, but we have a lot of question about the screen printing and textile. Most of our, how do you call, most of those successful application for screen printing is using the paint application. So the approach is using the database that we use, that we create for paint application. And so far the results are better in terms of color matching. So if you are using the approach using the textile application, you might have a problem because of the screen printing, the white base. They are using white base, which is very similar to a paint application. Okay, Naim, so are you ready?
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, I'm just
All right, okay.
having, yeah, it's got expired 10 minutes.
Okay, so maybe Pansy, you can help me answer some question. What do you recommend for measuring Terry Tower?
The tower one will be something like the fiber one. You need to have the rig and jigs to hold the fiber to be flat because the fiber, no, the tower will be something like the fiber will be hairy, but this is the loop. So if you don't get a flat surface, at the end, you don't get a repeatable reading as well. So this is all related to the measurement technique, how you handling the sample. Okay, so how you recommend it? Some people they will do it like they put on the glass in front of it and then try to utilize the sample arm holder, which is have some sort of the pressure to make it flat. Or in another way, you also can utilize something like the fiber holding to have the stand, to have a consistent pressure. Because if you press too much, they will be flat. Press too less, then they will be bounce back a little bit. So it's all related to how you measure it. How successfully to measure the material by using, how we can measure by the material. Okay, put it in the material. This is 45 zero geometry. You will just capture the color based on visual assessment, but don't forget about the loops on top. So it depends on how the client, the loop it is. So at the end, you still don't get a really repeatable measurements. The only thing is you're looking at the actual sample, how it looks like, rather than you're pressing down to make it to become flat surface. So I will utilize the method view. This is more for visual assessment, but not for formulation part. Okay, so I hope I can answer your question. Oh, what are this one? Screen printing, yeah, screen printing. If this is the paste one, so it was just sitting on top of the fabric.
Yeah,
So we go for
it may be taking 1 or 2 minutes because earlier it was configured in to say in paint, and now I'm just changing to textile.
can we have the multiple dice versus
Okay. We have, yeah.
this one?
Yeah,
Okay, according to Mr. Gupta's requirement, I don't think in the software, on the existing software we can do, but if we output the data, definitely we can do it on the Excel file. That's why all the time I utilize the remote output, then we can utilize the Excel to plot different type of the graph. And the existing software just on the iMatch, we don't have such a graphic.
yeah. Now I'm going to share my presentation.
Multiple
If you're not sharing yet,
Yeah. One minute.
Mr. Gupte, the answer to your question, Spatsy said we don't have it for multiple dice in a single curve representation. I think that is the question.
yeah, but if we utilize the remote output, we can plot the graph under the Excel, then we can do it. Because this is the way how we see whether the graph, no, whether the die stuff is affinity or compatible with each other.
Yeah, that is what I want, that we are able to find out the trichromatic combinations.
I know what you want. The only thing is under the colorant editor, they're always looking at the single dice. Because if you look at the graph, this is always 45 degree, but don't forget the scale on the graph.
Yeah, I understand, Patsy. I just wanted to know whether that facility and feature is there or not to plot it under one single scale.
I can do it outsource for you to do it on the remote output and then put it on the Excel file. But in the software itself, sorry that we don't have it. We only can see individual one by one.
Oh, okay.
Because in the software, I don't see they have the ability to combine all the die stuff together to see the graphic. But what I understand in the software, we have the remote output, which is export all the measurement data. Then from there, I can do it directly under the Excel.
Okay. Because I also want to know, how to understand the linear and non-linear region of disturbed behavior.
Understand?
Yeah.
I have
So
set
from
one of the generic output file. I have most of the data. Maybe I can from there to create one of the graph for the dissect. It may be helping.
Oh, yeah, sure, Patsy. Okay.
Okay, let's go back to Naeem first. Right,
Yeah.
until
Yeah, we are back. This is our image control. So here we have taken, okay, 1 minute. We have taken this 3 die stuff. So we can see this is a color value graph as well as normalized CSV graph. So in this we can see this is a primary stage. So and here we don't have a saturation. That's why we are not having the normalized CSV as a old days curve in this. So if we are using the tri combination, we have to check all the 3 tri combination or 3 product, whatever we are using or for recipe, it should be same normalized graph behavior. then it is very good compatible based on that spectrophotometer evaluation assessment. And there may be other parameters as well, but that is different part. But based on the spectrophotometer evaluation, we can identify by this. Yeah, all three compatible, and will give you that good result in for formulation as well as in correction. So normally this is the thing. So we just make it smooth by enabling and disabling the sample. For example, at this point, I feel that this point is little up. So what I will do, I will disable this point, make it to be smooth. So this kind of things we can do, but it's still, if even though also it is not possible, then we can check if we have a alternative samples. So here only we have a single sample, so we don't have any alternative sample, and we can't disable and change to that one. But if we have alternate sample, that also we can choose, and it will also help to be improve this graph or this normal color value and concentration graph. So if I will see yellow and red and blue, so all are almost similar, and then will have a very good compatibility. In this also, we have to be see that what is the scale, on which scale we are working. So based on that, we have to be understand. If we are doing normal study, it will help you to understand, okay, yeah, this is fine. And this is the options we have in color evaluation part. So it is like we have seen in slide, Stern method. It is normally recommended if we have a database in reflectance method, then we should use some color value. If we have a database in transmission method, then we should use single wavelength method. Here we can define how many maximum levels we can use for single concentration. 2, 3. It is recommended at least we have a 3 minimum. We want to be go more, but normally customer don't do this kind of much work. But still we can recommend at least 3 they should have, because it will help it help us to be make good database as well as to we understand their lab repeatability, because here we have given 0.5 delta E. So it is 0.5 delta E is only identifying the 3 good levels. If all the levels or all the alternate samples having the 0.3 delta E, then database will not accept. So here we are just defining the alternate samples levels, or here we are defining the alternate samples measurement limit 0.5, and this is a percentage error limit, that is respect to software correlation. When we are measuring any sample, immediately software also will calculate virtual sample virtual measurement for respect to their primaries minimum to maximum concentration, and will correlate. So it will give you the suggestion, okay, this, and suggestion, okay, this is not, it will have this much percentage of error. So normally in textile we keep is 30%, but it's highest we can take. If it is lower, if this percentage is lower, it's for database and correlation with respect to software. So here we have equations we can use. The D star C2000 is best. What kind of approach we have? If we have a visual approach, we have more approach in textile. We have a totally, I think, more than 98% we have visual approach. So if we are using D2000, it is good. If we have an instrument approach, then we should go with the D star. That's fine. But it's again depend what final decision method we have. Based on that, we can choose delta I method. This is kind of tool, and based on our approach, we can choose the delta I method. If we have visual, then we should go with CMC or C2000. In color and building, it's color and building. Color and building. In this, we have two basic method. One is model, one is point to point. The simple way we to be understand model is kind of software driven graph and if it is a point to point, it is actual measurement. So it is recommended we should follow the model. So it sometimes it is help you to be understand, and we will recommend the some kind of issues like we will able to find out that predicting performance error and all those things. So it is recommended, but very extreme condition, there is some kind of product which is behave like we can say if it is a fluorescent color or fluorescent color, it's navy blue color or it's turquoise color. Those kind of color will not be able to be replicate the actual as there are actual measurements totally different. So in this case, we can use point to point. In color value substrate, yeah, it is recommended to be used because sometimes when we are preparing the database for polyester and polyester yarn and fabric, and there is substrate brightness or maybe a reflectance sometimes is lower than the dyed sample. So to be identify or control that one, we should check this one. So here we can choose fiber, dye class, process, fiber. We have acrylic, cotton, nylon, polyester, silk, wool, and others. Also we can define dye class. We have reactive, basic, sulfur, wet, and other whatever. Based on that, normally we are using textile, disperse, and reappraise most in use, and dye process, exhaust, and continuous. And this is a pickup. So normally for exhaust we should keep for 100, but if it is a continuous, there is a also there is a correlative pickup that we can ask them to be what is their relative pickup for exhaust line, and then we can change. So normally for a continuous is almost 70 to 75%. We can change. So this is the basic we have in software. So if anything from your side, please let me know.
Yeah, there's one question, M. What are the options other than the substrate factor we have in our software for substrate having different absorption properties? I think this is,
Yes.
yeah, I think this is one database with many types of substrate. Yeah. Or
Yeah, so substrate, we have a two different factor. One is substrate factor, one is production factor. So if we have an issue with lab to production correlation, then we can use the production factor. Substrate factor is kind of when we are using the multiple same database for multiple substrate, and then we can use the substrate factor. So in this case, we can what we do if, for example, I will take very simple example. We prepare the database in cambric textile material that is very maybe fine fabric, very smooth. But when we speak about poplin and seating, they are little heavy compared to cambric, and seating is little heavy than cambric. So as a cotton property, both the fabric are 100% cotton. So we can use the same database, but we need if we know that there will not be any tonal deviation and there is only depth deviation, maybe 30% and 40%. So what we will do, we will change the substrate factor in that software. So if we are taking the recipe for a poplin or maybe seating, so immediately that substrate factor will work and will give you that higher amount of the amount in recipe for that poplin as well as for seating. So that is a substrate factor we have in software.
Okay. Another question, M. Follow-up question. Relative pickup. Is this dry or wet pickup? I think it's wet, right? The relative pickup on the setting, yeah, for continuous dyeing.
Yeah, it's kind of that case when we have in normally in exhaust pickup it doesn't matter. It's not bad, so we should keep 100. But in continuous when we have a padding, then pickup matters. So in that case, we have to be analyzed lab pickup or production pickup, and based on that we can change. Yeah, this is related to continuous or padding only.
Okay. I will answer this question. For the substrate factor for paint is not relevant because the because paint is always an opaque application, so the substrate is not that very important or very high impact. But if you are doing a transparent application, then that will impact. But we don't use a factor, it's more controlled by a measurement. So the recommendation is always to use a non-OBA substrate for paint application. Okay, one more question. How to use MAPI function in version 10? Okay, maybe we will take this as another subject matter on the more training to come. We are planning to have a several topic for some of the features in IMATS. So maybe today we cannot show you the MAPI function, MAPI function in version 10, but we will do another subject matter on this or topic on this. So, and I don't see any more question on here. So far,
Yeah.
you have already replied most of them. I think all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing, one side, one is question about terry towel, right? As Ms. Passy said, if you use that glass aperture and then flat kind of thing, then it's good. And also very important to be go for multiple reading and average. For example, if we have a normal fabric, then we are using 4-time reading. If we have a terry towel, if we use the more than 4-time reading, then it will give you the good consistent result.
Okay. Okay, any more question? So we can move to the next topic, which is related to the formulation and correction setting or workflow. Okay, wait, there is a follow-up before we leave that. There's a question. For the towel industry, are there as there is filed, so when we make the database, should we use glass aperture at the time of the primary measurement? Also for the calibration, we use the glass aperture.
Yeah, so in this for primary, if you are preferring the database in glass aperture, then it is always recommended whenever we are working with this database related to recipe prediction, formulation, and correction, always use the glass aperture in calibration as well.
Okay, I don't see any more question here. Okay, so I think we can Patsy, can we move now to the formulation and
Okay,
correction?
before we move, maybe based on Naeem's sharing, I just want to put one more comment for the database. Okay,
Yeah.
if you look at the software, we only allowed to pick up 15 levels of the concentration. But it doesn't mean you need to really prepare 15 samples for one dice. So you don't need to prepare something like which is less than 0.001, 0.005, all those things. Because in the beginning of the dye absorption, this is quite considered as a straight line, it's a linear one. So remember that the software just need to understand how the dyes build up, the pickup curve it will be. It doesn't mean you put in more samples, then the software will help you out to get more accurate. Rather that you need to make a representative and good database. So if you just look at the Naeem, the data show it to you, sharing with you right now, you can see his sample is from 0.075, 0.15, 0.3. But if you look at the calculation, actually, we just pick it up from 0.3 or even 0.15. If you look at the 0.075, most of the time you will see this is the poor fit. It's because of the error percentage is high. So when you have a very minimum concentration of the dyes on the fabric, so the contamination, it can happen from your dyeing jar, from your dyeing machine. So do you get a repeatable measurement to represent this concentration is important. So we rather to get something which is able to repeat, able to see the colors. Otherwise, even you try to measure 4 times average, but it doesn't really represent this particular percentage, then end up you don't get a good sample in the database. So just make sure you understand what sample is needed, not had to be as many as possible. And in the software, the maximum is only 15 levels. If you have more than 15 levels, the software will just will ignore it. Or in another way, we also see some weird performance on that. So just a small reminder for everyone. Okay.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah, it's
Patsy.
fine.
Sorry, Naem. Please go ahead, Naem.
Yeah, it's very good point from Patsy. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Naim.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So,
Okay, now I'm stopping sharing, and you please share your screen and please continue.
sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Naem.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Naim.
Yeah, stop sharing it, and we'll be there in presentation. Yeah. Now I
Okay.
stop sharing. Please go ahead now.
Yep. Let me sharing my screen. Okay, so for the comic down, okay, so I hope we won't be over time because now it's already 12:40. Okay, so in the coming section, we will talk about the formulation and the correction. But since most of the one you're joining here, I believe you're already familiar with the step. It's just clicking from 1 to 3 and 4, and then you get the recipe, and then from there you put in the sample, you can get a correction. So in this section, we rather to be just kind of sharing some of the parameters which is related to the formulation and correction to make you have a better understanding, okay, what it is, and then how you can apply. Okay, first of all, I just want to share with everyone is related to the color, the e-job template. So all the time we talk about, okay, when you want to run the formulation, definitely you can just open a new e-job, right? I believe some of the customer will do it this way. Then they will just open a new e-job and then they go to the database, recall the substrate, okay? Shift function 7, you can recall your substrate. Then after that, you're going to recall shift function 9, which is recall your colorants. So you select all the colors here, and then you just do a formulation. But think in this way, do we need to always doing like this? Actually, we don't need to. So that's why we recommended we utilize the job template to put in all the parameter. But one thing you need to remember that when we set up the job template, whatever inside this template, like the colorant rules, the grouping, or whatever setting is related, is only working under this template. So why I say so, so let me just give you one example. Okay, I prepared 2 templates. So this is one of the template I just set it up. I call Patsy demo template. Another one is the update. You will see a little bit difference. All these already record the colorants as well as the substrate. Okay, so this is the first one. I also put in my target, okay? But no matter what, you can see this is all my colors here, as well as I have my substrate here. But you won't see any colorant rules, the rule will be put it in. It's because all this will be followed by the template, even on the group of the dice. So if I go back to, no, let me open another one. So I have another template, which is called update. What's the difference now? You see, I still see the same die stuff as well as the substrate, but I will put in the colorant rules, which is helping me to select which one can be used, which one cannot be used, or which one cannot be pairing together. So all these rules will be following on your template. So if you don't set up the template, you don't put it in, then all the time you need to recreate or you need to put it in one by one. So think about it. If I just open a new job, when I just call out the colorants, I only have the information about the dice as well as the substrate. But when I go to formulation, so when I want to know, okay, I need to have certain properties on this recipe. So this one had to be baby care. So it cannot be utilized certain dye stuff because it's prohibited. I need to go back and look for it one by one. So if you set up the template, which is already included most of the coloring rules, you save it as a template. You can simply to say, okay, now I need to run the formulation using the same set of the dyes, but now I just need to select, okay, which one I need. I just need the baby hair. Then they will select the correct dye stuff for you. So that's why make sure once you, when you, no, I would say that when you do the formulation or when you set up the software for the customer, you should guide them to set up the template with all the needed information. If not, the needed information will be only in another job, but not happen in the new job. So that's why this is the way how we set up the template. Why we want to do it, because we want to put in most of the information. So this is the one thing we will take a look. Okay, let's go back to the formulation. Close part of it. Close all the window first. Let me reopen. Just open the new one from my updated template. So what else you can do under the job template? So if you go back to the QC, most of the time you put in the colorants. So let's say if you have a new colorants, which is you want to add in, and then how can you arranging the shade one by one? Because all the time when you create a new one, not secret, when you call a new one, let me put in some of the dyes. Let's say I have my navy now. I want to dyes. It's my pink. So they will just add it below. Then if you go back to the formulation, you will find it is a little bit odd why the navy and the pink, they're not under the group. So in order to be grouping it, back to the QC, there's a way to do it. Select the one, you need to move it one by one. You can see it. They can move it back. Not so friendly, but at least you don't need to recall, because in the older version, you need to recall one by one correctly according to your group. If not, they will be just sitting at the back, and then you will find, oh, sometimes the blue is in front, sometimes the blue is at the back. Okay, so at least now you can do it, but only thing is you need to do it one by one. Arrange like this after you arrange. So don't forget, save it as a template and update your template once again. Okay, so this is how you can arrange your dye stuff. The next thing I would like to show you is related to the coloring group. Coloring group is also following on your job as well as your template. So when you want to create a group, simply just right click and then you can find create groups. So just click it on, give a name. Your group name, then you will select the dye stuff you want to work with. Dyes I like to work with, then you can just select a group. So the group is very common and simple usage, which is based on common color. Instead of you have 13 dyes or 20 dyes, you need to select one by one. So if you select the group, when you go to the formulation, okay, once you click on the group, they will pre-selected all the dyes which is under the group. And on top of it, because this is only the grouping, this is the pre-select, you still can able to add in dyes. If you say, when I need to match this color, only the basic group, it doesn't enough, then you can select from here. So this is the grouping function. Then the next thing I would like to show you is consider as a new features in version 10, because if you're running on the version 9, you don't have the gamut view. So the gamut view is based on the selected dye stuff you selected. Okay, let me select all first. And then you can select which color you're going to match. And then you can go to the gamut view and to have an understanding whether this recipe or this target can be matched by this group of the dyes. Okay, so now you can see this is 3 dimension, so the target can be matched because it's in a dot, green dotted, it's a green dot, then it means this is within the gamut. Okay, if I remove some of the dyes, let's go for the basic dice. So only 6. Maybe even I remove one of it. So if you look at it again, then you can find my dot now is out of the gamut, which is, it means by using this these 5 die stuff, I may not able to match this colorant, no, this target. So this is another way just helping some of the new user when they don't know what kind of the die stuff should be selected in the recipe calculation. Okay, so this is one of the features. Then after that, let me just show you a quick formulation first. So formulation is very straightforward. Select your target, select your colorants you would like to have, as well as your substrate. So if you move a little bit from the right-hand side, you should see this is what we call the target group, and then this is what you've been selected, and then you go for formulation. So under the display, I set to be delta E 3 is the limit. So anything is within 3 delta E, they will show the recipe. If you want to be controlled to be less, then you just put it. Those, they may calculate numbers of the recipe, but they only show all the recipe which is below 0. Okay, this is the best recipe. And then this is the concentration on all the free dyes. So before I go ahead, let's go back to the settings, because you can see, oh, this one is based on free dye stuff. And I set the recipe is only utilized 2 or 3 or 4, 10. So before you run formulation, you also can come back to the setting and say, okay, how many tolerance in the combination? So for the default, which is by 2 or 3, because we are not recommended to use too many dyes in one recipe, because when you have too many dyes, actually it's getting very dirty and not easy for the correction as well. But just make it as a demo. 4 dyes up. And then the 4 decimal point in terms of the percentage and the grammage, then you will set it up for. Just now, Norman asked about the weight accuracy. It really depends on the size of your sample. If you go to prepare 10-gram sample, you need to look for 4 decimal point, because the percentage of the error, if you have a higher decimal, if you are more accurate in terms of all those, the percentage of the error will be lower. If you're making a 1 kilogram, then you can go for 2 decimal point. Okay, so this is related to the size of your samples, how big or how small it is. Then from there, you look at the decimal point. But if you're telling me that we don't have a dispensing, we are using the manual pipette, then I would rather to say to make a bigger samples rather than a small sample. Okay. So first of all, let's play with these two first. I set to be 4 colorants in my recipe, and the decimal point is 4. So I utilize the same setting and run the formulation again. So now you can see if you change, then they will get a different recipe. And then no matter what, the display on the software will give you the best recipe based on the optimum score. So same as the coating application, we also have optimum score, and the optimum score also based on the settings, how you want to set it up to be the best recipe. So in the newer version, under the version 10, we are looking at the spectral shape, which is last time we don't have it. So last time, most of the people will set up, this is the delta E CMC. I had to be small delta E, but don't forget the delta E is only one of the parameter, which is the total difference. When we look at the colors, we have to make sure the shade is right, the lighter, the L is right. So I rather to look at the spectral shape, because the shape is right, they're matching to each other. I don't get the mathematic matching. On the same time, the delta E will be very small as well. So same as what you learned yesterday, depends on which one is more important. You set up the parameter, and then from there, they will utilize the calculate the score. And the score will be smaller the score, means better the recipe. Higher the score means this is not good. So don't mix up. This is a reverse way. Smaller the score, better the recipe it is. Okay, I keep it this way first, and then you can look at the recipe. Take a look on the recipe. This one, they give you a star. It means the optimum score recipe. So if I want to look at the others, I can click show all. So under the show all, you will see all the recipe, which is within the 0.8 delta E based on your setup condition. And then on top of it, okay, what else we can see from here? You can see one of it, they have the star. Some, they have the red color. Okay, let me take a look. Do we have something is green? Okay, this one doesn't have anything in green. Let me go back to one. Let me go back to my group one, which is using the free recipe, free dye stuff only. Okay, so I just want to give you some explanation or information about how you see all those icons. So the icon with the star, as I mentioned, this is the best score. So this one, they have the 0 score. If you click it on that, you can see this is the spectral curve, the predicted performance, how it will be. If you make it reverse, so I get another recipe, which is 4,000 score. So you can see the curve is rather to be overlapping each other. That's why this is not really a shape matching recipe. I will get a mathematical match. Okay, so instead of getting a star, what else we can look at? So you can see some of the recipe, they change to be red, some they're in green. So what those meanings on the green and the red? For the green one is when you set up the dye stuff, you remember under the color editor, when you set up the dye stuff, you can set this is the preferred dye stuff, or this is the restricted or not recommended use dye stuff. Because some of the dyes is not good for compatibility, or maybe some of the dyes, when they calculate the formulation, like a violet and all those very strong chroma color one, we will prefer on only certain usage. Then we will set this is not a common dyes. Okay, let's take a look on the I need to go back to return first. And you can see what I mean on the properties. So you can see this is a preference. Is it a preference tolerance, normal tolerance, or use only required? If you have the recipe, have the dyes, which is only use it only where if required, then they will change into red. If you have all the dyes inside the recipe is with the preference and the normal colors, then they will be in green. That's why this is how we see why some of the recipe in front of the small icon is red, some of the icon is in green. Okay. Then one more thing, you can look at it. How come I have a recipe number behind? I also have an exclamation mark. When you click on the exclamation mark, this is something related to dyes. Okay, let me see where can I show you. Description, okay. Yeah, okay, this one is related to the safety warning associated with the form. Okay, so one of the dyes is I put it when I need to use on the acid blue 5G. Extra care on the dye solution preparation is needed. So that's why they have the exclamation behind. If they don't have it, so it means they are not utilize those dyes, then they won't have the problem. They won't have the exclamation mark. And the exclamation mark, where the information comes from, is also coming from the dye stuff. So this is the 5T. I set it up. Let's go back to the properties. So it's related to not just the normal information about the name of the dyes, the fiber group, the dye stuff group, but it would be related to the colorant tag. So colorant tag property, not everyone will set it up, but if you utilize the current tag, actually it's helping you to select the correct dyes. Because most of the dyes you can utilize for most of the application, but sometimes you want to put on the extra information when you're in use. Then you can set up the safety comments, as well as you can put on the colorants tagging to helping you to select the correct dye stuff. Something like this is the affinity one, trichromatic one, or maybe this one is only can use for outdoor because of the fastness. You also can put it here under as a colorant tag. By this colorant tag, you were able to generate the rules and then to helping you to select the different dyes. So this is some of the features I see most of the time we don't utilize. even though it's available, but it will be helping the customer to select the correct dies, and especially for those they don't have the experience on the formulation. Okay, so this one, how you set it up? First of all, you need to go back to the settings and then go to the tag format, and then you can find it under the system default. You will have one called color and label. So if you click on the edit file, you can, according to your need, to set up each of the parameters and put in the data. So some can be the multiple select, some can be a single select, like the maximum timing, it just likes to select one, or even you can just put in a text edit. So you can just type in whatever you want. But most of the time, I would recommend that you set up the parameter for your customer, what will be able to select. Then from there, when you create the color rules, which will be much easier. Okay, so in my demonstration, I set up, this is permitted in, maybe some of the dyes only can be applied in certain country. The dyeing times, how long it can dye, the maximum temperatures, the usage, like for the item type, this is for outdoor one, this is for baby wear. And then whether this is the preferred colors, you also can set it up. Once you set it up, after you set up the dye stuff under the color editor, okay, let me go back a little bit, just open the color editor. Editor. Okay, so when you do the evaluation, normally you will just do like this. So with this is good, you come to click save. You just give a name. You will may not change all those parameters, but you should change the minimum and the maximum of this. And then at the end, don't forget come to the current tag and put in all those information. So if you already have the preset of the current tag, you just need to come and select. Okay. This is can be good for all the countries. And what kind of the maximum temperature for this? Last time they have please key in some of the information. The dyeing time. So this one's suitable for 90 minutes, 120 minutes. As this is the usage. This is only for the baby wear. Some of the dyes we just like ink, we also have certain chemical properties not allowed on certain product. So once you click save, then you will have all those tagging information from there for you to generate a template as well as. Okay, so this is how you set up the tagging information on each of the dice. Let's go back to here. So I already put in some of the information on the selected dice. Okay, how can I set up the coloring rules? So set up the coloring rules, which is also under the settings. You just need to come to here. And then you can, based on that, to create new rules. So put a name, okay. Okay, so since you already have the tagging been set up for each of the dice, then you will utilize here to set up, okay, maybe I'm looking at the dyeing temperature, it had to be greater than 90 minutes. So anything more than 90 minutes, they will be selected. So if you look at the dice, you have the one is 90 minutes, 120 minutes is selected, then they will be under this group, under this criteria, and then they will be selected. So besides of the tagging, we also can choose had to be, this is under the preferring dice stuff, normal dice, or even under the restricted, then they will give you more option. So if you say no, only the prefer and the normal dice stuff can be selected, then they will shortlist less dice stuff allowed to select. So on top of it, they also have another small new features in the new version 10, which is calling the, they call it the pairing restriction. So some of the dice stuff, they may not compatible with each other when used. So based on the customer experience, you need to go for the experienced guy who know their dice stuff well. Then they will say, then they will select it from here. When I'm using this blue, I cannot use together with another one. let's say this is the 2A. So these two blue cannot be using together. Then you will just simply put an X maximum concentration at a pair. Then when the software try to look into it, they won't utilize these two blue in the same formula. If you want to add more pairs, you can add from the same, okay? Then you can just add it in. But if you say in another way, I want to control the concentration in these two pairs, then you would just select, okay, when I'm using together, but it had to be not more than 0. Just put in the percentage maximum combination can be used to add a pair. Then they will have the 0.1. So when you select the rules, then the software will say, okay, even though I may utilize this green and green GK together, minimize this one only can be 0.0. So this is the way how you set it up. So after you set it up, definitely you can export the rules for other people use. So if you have multiple system or you want to copy into another template, you can just simply rule, and then they will keep it under your system share file. And then in order to import, so just very straightforward, go back to your system share, then you can recall whatever, then you have the same rules to be applied in this template or in this job. Okay, so let's take a look, okay, how we can apply the rules. So just now I show you, if you select the basic group, so all the other columns still available, you can add in, but you won't select two groups together because the group is only the basic pre-selected groups, okay? If you want to select all the die stuff, just click on the dice, the column icon here, you will select all. One more time, you unselect all. Okay, but on the rules, then you can select multiple rules. So let's make a demo like I only want the baby care approval one. So you can see if I select one of it, the others is become all disabled. So it means you are no longer to add other die stuff in the formulation. It's because only these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 different colorants can fulfill the baby care approval dice. So if I add on another one, I want to utilize the pair restriction. Then they will from there try to set up the restriction when I utilize the black B together with the yellow 5TS, they only can allow to use up to 0.09%. So this is how you can select multiple coloring rules under the formulation. Group is only one, and then for pre-select, and then you can add on more dice. But when you apply the rules will be restricted on certain dice, which is can fulfill the parameter, then they allow in the formulation. Okay, sorry, let me go back. Let me go back to run the formulation one more time. So if I select this, it's only the baby care one, click formulate. Okay, because this one is under 4 colorants, so now you can see they were forced to be using 4 colorants, as well as because one of the dice, they have the safety warning. That's why you can see they have the exclamation mark. But why this one is not in a star is because this is, they don't, this is not the optimum score when they run the formulation. Okay. On the formulation, what else we can do? We can take a look here. This is only the filter out how many recipe you want to see. While the delta RAD adjustment, this is they will try to adjust the whole spectral curve to be lighter and darker from -5 to maximum 5. So make it easier to demonstrate. If I don't set it up, this is 0. You can see this is the dark green color I'm looking at. But if I change it into free, click formulation again, you can see the color standard will be changed to be a lighter shade because they try to moving up the whole spectral curve to a lighter 3 points lighter, delta L lighter. If you put it into minus, then this one will L getting darker for 3 points. Okay, so this is the way how we can utilize to make it lighter and darker. So in another way, if we instead of the, I will put it instead of the substrate factor. So if you know certain substrate is only about lighter darker shade, is because of the texture. You also can play with this delta L adjustment. Because substrate factor is based on the absorption, but if you this is the same fiber, but it just because of the different texture, somehow they look lighter darker. Then I don't want to trouble myself to create a substrate database. Then you can just simply to play with, make it 1 tone lighter or 2 tone darker. Then you also can utilize to get a different recipe, because when you change, okay, I have to adjust a bit. Then you can see the recipe, the percentage also change. You can see this is the same color standard, but because I'm changing the delta L adjustment, lighter and darker, you also can see the recipe calculation will be also following as well. So that's why this is another small way to play with the software, which is just helping you. I don't have the correct substrate factor, but I just want to be getting a bit darker recipe, the stronger recipe, which is the whole, all the dye stuff will be adding to be stronger. It's the same concept, but this is a temporary factor, putting this way. Okay, let's go on. We move to the show off. Okay, so come to the show all display. So instead of the spectral curve, you also have another one called predicted performance graph. So some customer or some user also come back to me say, Patsy, how we read this one? So this one, why we have something like all the dots sitting around? This is what we call the predicted performance. It's the prediction. How we can get this prediction is based on the variation from your dyes, as well as from one of the settings here, the variation here. By default, we set up to be 5. So it means we expected no matter what in the textile lab, you will have some sort of the variation in terms of the dispensing, in terms of the preparation, in terms of the fiber, the cloth. They may have certain variation for the absorption as well. So we put it into 5. So if I make it to be, the dots will be more concentrated in the center. Higher. So I expect more variation will be happening in my color lab. Then the predicted graph will have more dots. That's how I look at this dot. Okay, so on each of the recipe. If I base on the recipe here, so one of the dot will be something like this, right? You can see, oh, this is will go to one direction. So it can be when I'm matching this color, it can be sitting in the center. I get 0.5 delta E CMC difference, or it can be go to 1 delta E, which is in the yellow ring, 1 delta E difference. On the red ring, which is 1.5, if out of that, and this is more than 1.5. So it means if I have any variation in my preparation on this recipe on the samples, instead of getting a good match, which is the delta E supposed to be 0.03, I can get more than 1.5. Compared to this, compared to another one. Okay, compared to this one, if I utilize this one will be easier in terms of the correction, as well as I can easily get a good match, because even though they may be spread around within 1 delta E, but they're not go all the way over my tolerance. So one will be going to one direction, 1 and 2 direction. This one will go to all the direction, but no matter what we're expected is a better match, because you can look at the curve. It will be, no matter what, they should get less than 1 delta E. Some of the recipe will be like a firework, which will be over to all the direction. If you get a recipe like this, then it means you may not easily to get a repeatable colors if you due to the variation from your color lab. Okay, but no matter what, how we look at it, we should make a proper variation first. So that's why normally we set it back as 5. If this is reasonable, I look at the spectral curve. they are matching, they're not overlapping, they're not metameric, then this one will be a kind of the recipe is good to go ahead. Now have question. I go back to the
Question, Patsy, so far. Please explain about spectral shape in selecting for optimum score.
Okay, the spectral shape will be something like the spectral deviation in the coating, which is last time we used to have it in the copilot in our version, in our industrial formulation. They tried to looking at the spectral curve, are they a good match? But we never apply into the textile. But in the version 10, we take this one into the textile, and then they standardize the term for the spectral shape. So it means if I have a better curve matching to my standard, it means less metameric, then I will have a higher score. So this one will be go back to the return under the settings. So optimum score. So we will now, so now we set up this one will be the default as the most important things. Because last time some customer, they will utilize, I need to look at the delta E first. Delta E is far more important for me. As I mentioned, delta E is only a total difference. It doesn't calculate, doesn't consider metamerism. So that's why sometimes someone will set it up, okay, I need to make sure the metamerism is good. But if you put it this way, the spectral curve is correct, my metamerism will be low. On the same time, my delta E will be low. So you can utilize this one. Is the most important one. Just set up the scale, how important it is. And then next thing, you may look at the cost. Where's my, if you put in the cost of the dye stuff, then you can utilize to calculate. Had to be good match, and then had to be cheaper. Then this is the way how you do. So it will be the same concept when you apply in paint and plastic as well. So this is the shape, the spectral shape. Okay. So this is the parameter in formulation. But yeah, by the way, okay, the new workflow, I cannot say new workflow, but I would rather to say that everybody try to follow the same workflow, because in the new version, they will try to save the recipe together with the sample as the search and correct. Probably in the coming future, we'll have the search and correct features in iMatch Textile. At the moment, we don't have it, but at least we have started to have to save the recipe, which is the known samples, which is the sample together with the recipe. For the standard, you will only save the approved recipe. It won't be the 100% match, but this is what you approve. That's why you will treat it, this is the approved match, and then it won't be utilized in search and correct in the future. So how we do it? Okay, let me restart it a little bit. Remove all the recipe first. Okay, so if I go to the formulation, okay, I don't want to apply any rules, at least easier for myself. I just run the formulation. Change to be A. So by the way, on the setting here, you will set up how many dye stuff you're allowed to use, what kind of the decimal point on each of the recipe content. And other than that, I believe most of the thing is very straightforward. Even you also can do it on the desktop now, like the evaluation, what is the match limit? Do you want to show the warning when the substrate is higher than, is stronger than the value target? So this one, I will put it, just keep it as the default, because it's not really a big deal, some information only. And then for the process attribute, I won't touching it, because you also can do it directly from here. Because if you change, then it means only those dyes with the correct tagging, with the correct group, they will be selected. Okay, Just let me run a quick formulation. So now we have a recipe of 3. So normally what we need to do, so once you run the formulation, I will still go back to show all. Try to look at the recipe from here. Find, okay, if this is the score, which you can see, even though they may be a little bit out from 1.0 delta E, but if I'm looking at the spectral curve, it almost matching. It means I can easily get a good match. Then I will, from here, click select, because I don't need the others. Then from there, I will go to save my job. Because if you don't save your job, you have to keep your job open and then wait for the samples. So other people also coming in to use it. Why don't you just save the job? So you just save the job first, or on the same time, okay, this is one. Save the recipe here. So when you save the recipe, then they will just put it under one of the slot. So me, I will always keep a name. This is only the first. Up to yourself, do you want to save the database? But I know that this recipe is not been approved, it's not been verified. So I will just don't click save to database. So now you just need to prepare the sample and wait for your samples. So what the next thing you need to do, reopen the job, and then you can just jump into the correction. So for this step, will it be complicated?
So Patsy, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so if no problem on this step, then we just go ahead to run some formulation. No, correction. Correction means once I have the recipe, I utilize this recipe, I go to make my sample. So the sample will be measured a trial. So I already have the sample here, I just recall, okay? Then you will see that, based on this recipe, I try to get the color, but do I get a good match? If this is within the tolerance, it means this is good. Then you can complete your job and then that's all. But if you say no, then you will just select from here. So I have my recipe, I have my sample. Then you can go for click correction. Before we click correction, let's just take a quick look on the setup, which is related to the correction. So they will have the CF factor, which is what we call the correction factor. The correction factor, how we calculate, actually the correction factor is the software will do it under the background. Try to take your sample and then to rematch again based on your primary. Then they will see, you tell me I got 1.1 delta E. If I utilize the currents to match again as a standard to match again, what kind of the percentage it will be, then compare against the standard, then we get the correction factor. In general, we will always use this CF factor or correction factor within the limit. The limit is about 0.7 to 1.3, which is something reasonable. We expect because of the affinity of the dyes, sometimes the sum of the dyes will be covering and the other colors. Then this is something workable and is something, how we call it, not workable, something is reasonable range. So we will utilize this one. But if you say, no, I don't want to utilize this one, then you just simply to tell the software, okay, it doesn't matter. I know I got something wrong in my procedures or in my preparation. I don't care about the dye's performance. Then you try to utilize without, but this is not recommended. Another one is use over the limit. So over the limit, which is from 0.7 to 1.3. So we can set up, say, okay, whatever unit they give it to me, even they say my dye stuff is 2 times weaker or 4 times weaker, try to apply it. Then they will utilize this one for a correction. Then the last option is use the CF up to maximum limit 2.5. So instead of going to go haywire to use whatever number, we also can set up the software and say, okay, what will be the maximum numbers you're allowed to use? So that's why if you open with the job, you can set up the limit. By default, we set up to be 3, but for myself, normally I set up to be 2.5. So you have to open with the job, go to the user setting. If you're moving down to formulation and correction, you'll find the option to let you to set up what will be the maximum limit. Okay, let's just keep on this one. use the CF factor? And then do you want to use the substrate factor as well? If your substrate factor is being applied in your formulation, then you will utilize the substrate factor in your correction. So this one is the exhaustion dyeing sample. Then when we run on the correction, we'll base on a new recipe. But if this is the continuous one, or this is continuous one for the production, you can utilize that additional. Okay, just take a quick look on the exhaustion dyeing correction. I just keep it as what it used to be and click OK. And then now I have my delta is 1.1. So this is my recipe. This is my sample. If I click correct, you will find out, okay, when the CF factor was being used, so what kind of the factor they was being seen from here. And then from there, they will give you a new percentage. How we can get this new percentage? Actually, this is some of the background calculation in the software. Is the software will try to look at how much I need to be correct, which is the percentage of the ad. And then they will multiple together with the CF factor, and then they give you the new percentage. The only thing is because I don't have the mathematics, how they calculate the correction percentage. So if you just give you a quick understanding is how can I get the new percentage, which is from the working percentage. They give you the correction recipe and then multiple the CF factor, then they will give you the new percentage. Okay, so this is what you will get it from the software. So when you get a new recipe here, simply just click on new correction. Then they will move the new percentage into the working percentage again and wait for your next recipe. Okay, so this is my correction. And then you can see the new workflow in the version 10 is once you click on the new correction, they try to save this recipe 0.1044, 0.1339, and 0.1489 of the blue, yellow, and navy together with your sample number 1. Okay, so this one I just simply call moving into the new position from the new percentage into the working percentage. Then what will be the next? We'll wait for the new sample. So we'll come back to here. I'm looking for the sample. So how I see this one, we were working with the one with the star with the straight. So it means I'm waiting for the new sample here. So I recall the recipe. This is the new working recipe. And then I need to measure in my new sample. So now I utilize the new recipe. I get a sample 2. And then if this is good enough, you will click approve. Okay, then this one will be the approved recipe. Then this is the first correction, but this is the sample number in number 2. And this time now you can save the database. So what it means, the recipe here together with the Kumi number 2 will be bundled together, saved into your database. Then how about your standard? Just now, if you remember when we just run the formulation, which is from the original initial recipe, which is not the approved one. If I want to keep this recipe, the approved recipe, into my standard again, you cannot just click approve. You need to come to the recipe and click right click. Okay, okay, I need to select the recipe. Save the recipe up. How come I don't get save the recipe up? Oops.
Should be approved.
Approved will be saved together with the standard.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, give me a minute now. Next correction. Okay, let me quickly go back to redo one more.
You do correction, Patsy, and there should appear next correction.
Yeah, because I already clicked the approve. So you can see this is all the original one. I cannot moving on to next correction. Okay, probably I click on the approve because How we can save the recipe? This is the approval recipe. Even though I have 0.27 E compared to the standard, I want to treat it as the approval recipe. You just need to right click, and then they should have the option save the recipe to your standard. Okay, let me just repeat again. Just a quick one. Make a quick one. Okay, then I go to the thread. So if I utilize this recipe, and again, this one, okay, it's open, doesn't matter. This one, not about. About that, let me fire it up. Probably I mix up something, but no matter what, okay, I just want to let you know, if you want to save this recipe, the approval recipe, together with the standard, you should be just right click from here, and then you should able to find the option save the recipe to the standard. Then from there, if you go back to your QC, if you look at the properties, because they give you the name to rename the recipe, then you can rename it. So you can, this one, yeah, so you can see this is the original recipe. This is not the approved one. So the approved one should be this one. So we want to save this recipe as an approved recipe to the standard, then we should be just on the recipe, right click, then you should able to update the information into the standard. But no matter what, you can see now the new version of the version 10 of the formulation is each of the sample, they will try to keep the recipe, and then you can find it. This is, they will check this one called accepted, approved, and then they will check the box called search and correct, because we know that this recipe, definitely we can make this sample number 2, while under this recipe, it also can make up to be the sample number 1. But if compared to the standard, this box will not be checked, because this is only for a good match, the best match, but it's not exactly the same what color you can. You cannot get this exactly the same standard. So that's why the search and correct box will not be checked. Even you check it, I believe in the future, even we check it out, it won't be applied into the search and correct the workflow, because this is not the color you can get it from this recipe. Okay. Then this one, yes. So
Hello,
this,
Pasi.
yeah. Hi.
Sorry. Yeah,
Sure.
Pasi. As you show in the window, can we delete the recipe, the non-approved recipe, under the standard, instead of we have several recipe?
Can. So if you have the, whatever you do, you can come back to the properties of the measurements. So if you save a numbers of the recipe here, if this is what you don't want it, you just delete the formula. Then you can clean up. So you will just keep it back. This is just a standard with the measurement without recipe.
Okay. And can we also delete outside under the standard 3?
No, this one is only showing you the recipe is belongs to where, but will be when you save to the database. Come on. You go back to the software to save to the database. If I save to database now, and then when you recall again, let's say I go back to my template, I recall my cumin passive. For this first. Okay, when I press it again. This one will have no recipe. because just now I deleted. But if you look at the sample, number 1, number 2, let's call the number 2. Then they will call the recipe, which is tag along with the measurements. This recipe is definitely can make by this color.
So in this case, what you recommend to save the recipe? Should we save in the under the standard, or should we save under the trial?
Save under the trial, and then at the same time you can see the trial will be associated with the standard. So when you record standard, okay, let me remove this one. You can simply say, okay, let me record the associate trial. If they have the recipe, they will just come along and pop it up. And then you can from there to look at which one will be the better recipe. And then from there you can utilize and then for the next correction or for the next use.
Okay.
Because the standard is made by somebody else. So you never have the recipe of this sample. You only can get the best match from your own dye stuff to get a good recipe, which is reasonable, approved one.
Okay.
By my own preference, I always save the recipe with the sample, not with the standard.
Yeah. Okay. Understand. Thank you.
So this is only the basic workflow. For the correction, okay. One more thing, yes. Okay, one more thing you can work it on is actually it's from the version 9.8. And then from now on, we also have it. This is something called the Textile performance evaluation. So when you save all the recipe, this is all the known recipe, right? I believe it will be working better now. If you right click from the colorants, you can see you have a new features called evaluate colorants performance. Let's use this is the 5T, right? Yes. And then you try to based on the recipe you've been used and then to give you a new dye stuff factor, because we know that when we put in when we create the dye stuff database, this is all based on single concentration. So they try to analyze when they're mixing together in use, do we have the same performance? Some sort of like smart match, but not as comprehensive as a smart match. Because if you look at the another company software, the smart match is they were also looking at the substrate. So they will categorize when I look at the recipe, they will be utilize the same substrate, then they see the factor. In our version is as long as you use these dyes in the recipe, regardless of what substrate, they will be started to calculate the performance. And then from there, they will give you a new factor. So if you have the factor, they say, this factor may be helping my formulation. You can just click save the new factor to the colorants. Then they will update the colorants properties, which is come to the properties. This is the dye factor. So you can see now I change a little bit. Instead of this is 1.0, I just added a little bit more, 1.0021. So it means the colorants is a little bit weaker. All the time when I use this blue 5G, I need to be add on a tiny little bit more. Because one is as used to be, smaller the one means stronger, more than one means it's weaker. So now I can see my dye factor is 1.002. So my dye is a little bit weaker than what we expect, what we used to be expected. And then in the new formulation, they will always add on a little bit more in the new formulation. So dye factor can be calculated in this way. If you back to the last week when we talked about the dye stuff performance, when you have a new batch of the dyes, so you also try to checking the dyes factor. So this one will based on one-time adjustment. We don't look at the rest. We don't look at the recipe, but we just look at when I put on 1% of the green, and this is the new patch of the dyes. 1% again. I compare. Do they see the same? If I see a little bit difference, I will just add on the factor to helping me in the formulation I will make it to be more or to be less. So that's why you will calculate your own die factor. So you also be updated into here to adjusting the formulation by using these dies. You all know how to calculate this one, right? This is only based on the strength comparison.
Yeah, that was our topic on the first day for textile.
So if I make a quick demonstration, something like this one, we just call out 2. Just give me 1 minute. Let me just call 2 samples. So this is my primaries. So if this is 1%, I don't use the black. Okay, let's use the green. 1%. So this one is the original one. Okay, I will treat it as the, okay, let me just modify a little bit. This one called samples. Samples. Okay, how we can compare and update the dice factor. So you will just take one of the percentage of your original database. So people may utilize 1%, 2%, not too less, because if too less, actually you don't see the color too much. Okay, I treat it as a standard. And then you compare the new dice, the new batch of the dice, you repeat the same dyeing procedures, the dyeing cycles, and then just for comparison. Let me show the properties. Sum as a single. If you show in view, so this is about 100%. So it means your new die stuff, new batch of the dice is about the same. Then you don't need to do anything in your colorant files. But in case you say, the die stuff manufacturer telling me that, yeah, it's the same color, but now they're getting stronger. So it means I also utilize the same 1%, but this time I'm getting to be much darker now. You can see now I'm getting 200%. Okay, you won't get something like this. This is only an example. Then now I'm getting much stronger color. So how we can put in this information back to my color files, which is you just simply to say to utilize the calculation is 100 divided by 204. Then you will find roughly, which is 0.5. So now it means my dye stuff is 2 times stronger. So in order to get the recipe to be half of it to be weaker, I need to put 0.5 in my dye stuff. Then you will go back to your template. So this is the dies I use. Sorry, let me take a look. This is the GK. Okay. So you have to look at the dye stuff and go back to the properties and change the factor. So this one will be 0.5. Because 100, which is your standard, divided by your sample, then you will get how much percent you need to be modified into the dye factor. So now I'm 2 times more, so I need to be just half of it. That's why I put 0.5. If in another way, my dye stuff used to be strong, but now it's weaker, I need to put more, then it means I need to be put more than 1.5. More than 1. So I put 1.5, then it means I need to pick at least 50% more of the concentration to get the same shape. So this is the dye factor. So don't forget, once you click on, once you update, you need to update your template. If you don't update your template, it just applied in that job, but not in the future. So that's why all the time will be recommended you work on the template, and then whatever you change, update the template to pick the latest template. Otherwise, the customer will come back to you, hey, how come the recipe is still very weak? It's because you didn't update into the dice. Okay, so this is something you may need to pay attention. Okay, so I don't update my one because I have all the recipe. On the same time, if you want to, you also can save it into the database and update all. The next time when you recall the same green, then they will have the same dice factor to be applied, which is had to be 2 times, no, had to be half of it less. The only thing is, if you just recall the dice, you don't have the groups, you don't have all those colorant rules. So that's why I prefer to work on the template. Okay, so this is some of the sharing on formulation and correction. Or maybe you have any question, see whether I can answer you now, because now is 1:45. It's a little bit off time, but if you don't mind, if you have questions, maybe we can just do some quick Q&A. So everybody is familiar with the procedures, with the parameter, so no question. Thank you.
So far, Patsy. Anyway, just in case we can have another session if it's really necessary, just send us your questions or comment or any new topics that you would like us to cover. We will have another training session.
Sure. So it will be good to be more specific on certain topics or the items you want to look at. Then instead of we just go through the whole program, maybe we just look at particular features, then have a better discussion and analyze and sharing the information.
Okay. We are more than our allotted times, and I think everyone are staying. We still have the same number of people here. Nobody is leaving the session. So I would like to thank everyone. As explained to you earlier, we would like to continue this. This will be our ongoing training session. So we will accept any topic and we will try to arrange those topics so you can get a better idea on how to use some of the function in the software. iMatch has a lot of function. iMatch does not have what we call it's not like a structured step. It can go anywhere. It depends on how the customer would like the software workflow. So the workflow can be very dynamic. It depends on how you want it, how you want to use it, or how you find it very easy according to your preference. So that is color iMatch. So we would like to thank everyone. This is the last day for September. We will continue going on with more topics to come. And if you have any question, just continue sending us email. And I would like to thank Naem and Patsy for helping us to do this textile application. Namashi is not available today because he has some personal matter to attend. Some of his relative was died, so he need to attend to that what we call occasion. So anyway, so thank you very much everyone for joining us today. We will arrange a OneDrive so you can access the OneDrive and download all those recording, all those PowerPoint presentation that we have shared to you so far. So you will get another email from me and from the team. So in case I miss any one of you, please send me an email. I don't get everyone email here. Some of the people I see in the group are quite new to me or quite new to us. So please send us your email. We'll write my email on the chat box. So just in case I will miss you, please write to me and remind me that I need to share to you some of the topics that we have discussed so far. Okay, wait a minute. So I'm going to send it to everyone. I'm going to write it again to everyone. So this is my email address, ibuluron@xrite.com. Because I don't know who
Send already.
Okay, so please send us an email or to Patsy, PU at xrite.com or naemkan@xrite.com. So again, so thank you very much for staying with us this long. And I do really appreciate your cooperation and staying with us.
Thank you.
So I hope to see you
Thank you,
in the
Heidi.
next
Thank you.
session. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jari. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah, thank you everyone.